Hi, folks, and welcome to the Financial Argument Channel. As I'm talking about the big picture, the global economy, and related aspects, please bear in mind that oil is, by far, one of the most important parts of the neoliberal economic order. That said, oil isn't just the raw material for the gas and other products you buy. There's also a complex petrodollar system behind it, which has been untouchable. Until now. Henry Kissinger, the architect of current U.S. foreign affairs, is still alive, and I'm glad that he can observe today's collapse of the petrodollar system around the world. This is not a sudden process, but one that has been building over time. That said, in this video, I'll be talking about the oil crisis and petrodollar system. Oil, or petroleum, is one of the main energy sources we've used to build our entire civilization. Its history is extensive, and oil exploration and production have made some people richer than we could ever imagine. Meanwhile, in contrast to those very few, the communities producing the oil get poorer every single day. Countries that objected to or didn't obey this corrupt petrodollar system have been invaded by defenders of the global order, or their leaders have somehow disappeared. As you already know, there are some countries that supply oil to the global economy. Without oil, global civilization couldn't have reached its current level. Therefore, the oil production system and its global order are vital for everyone to understand. Most of you could probably guess that Saudi Arabia has long been the world's biggest oil supplier. Saudi Aramco's $25.6 billion IPO, for instance, was the biggest in history. While Saudi Arabia is the #1 oil exporter with its giant company Aramco, Venezuela actually has the most oil in its territory. Additionally, the United States is also a big oil producer, especially with its shale oil extraction techniques. The oil market isn't just economic, it's geopolitical. The Saudis play an essential role in the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, which constitutes a major part of oil-producing countries, including Algeria, Angola, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Venezuela. Apart from Venezuela, all of OPEC's members are in the Middle East and Africa, where civilization began thousands of years ago. Today, OPEC's ability to set the oil price and control oil production is essential to the global economy. At various points in history, this organization has cut oil production in response to Western actions. The 1973 oil crisis is one example of that. Until shortly before the 1973 oil crisis, the U.S. and many other countries followed the Bretton Woods Accord. The exchange value of the U.S. dollar was set in terms of gold, and many other countries set the value of their currencies to the U.S. dollar. However, due to rising problems in the global financial system, several countries started exchanging their U.S. dollars for gold, which increased both inflation and the price of gold in the United States. Then U.S. President Nixon stated his intent to suspend the gold standard and freely float the U.S. dollar, which began the era of freely floating currency without being linked to any gold or other standard. This directly affected OPEC members' income. While members wanted to continue petroleum production based on the gold standard, this could not be implemented. In the meantime, right after the oil crisis in 1973, the U.S. forced OPEC to use the U.S. dollar in petroleum transactions, which created the petrodollar. Notably, those who wanted to continue with gold-backed oil, such as well-known leaders like Iraqi President Saddam Hussein and Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi, have all been executed. Venezuela, one of the founding members of OPEC, is the only member nation situated in Latin America. Venezuela has endured decades of tension with the United States, and relations have completely deteriorated under its current leader, Nicolas Maduro. Maduro, a public bus driver prior to entering political life, has refused to relinquish power despite widespread hunger and unrest in Venezuela caused by a massive economic crisis and international pressure for him to step down. Today, hyperinflation in Venezuela is so high that it cannot be calculated. Venezuelan currency bills, the bolivar, litter the streets as garbage due to their worthlessness. Nobody bothers to pick them up because they have no purchasing power. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, is another issue. He has been in power since June 21, 2017, second only to King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. As soon as the Crown Prince took power, he had most of the other princes and various other relatives put in jail. Despite gross violations of human rights and numerous other issues that have served as a cause or pretext for U.S. or international intervention, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has never faced the same obstacles as Venezuela, Iran, or Iraq, and the Saudi royal family remains one of the wealthiest families in the world. The reason behind this is that the Saudis have obeyed the global order. After the oil crisis occurred in 1973, the U.S. was determined that OPEC would never again set oil prices with the goal of hurting America. This is why the Saudis have been a dominant member in OPEC, so that during the Saudi-U.S. consensus, oil prices would not rise the way they did in the 1970s. This is good for the global order, as oil prices almost affect every economic item in the world. Now, let's get to the current oil crisis. If you remember, 2020, WTI crude oil futures dropped below zero to around negative $40 per barrel. It was the first time in history that the price of oil went below zero. Additionally, in 2014, we saw another plunge in the oil market. So how long will this crisis continue? During the health crisis of March 2020, oil demand plummeted. This is because nobody in the real sector was in search of gas. When there's no demand for oil, oil storage becomes a problem. So as I explained in my previous videos, if the real sector struggles, financial markets go down along with it. Oil is no different. Since March 2020, demand for oil hasn't been as high as it was before 2020. Oil prices can't reach their previous levels, and the whole sector has gone into a huge crisis. Companies are in default, employees have been let go, huge losses have occurred, and oil consumption has plummeted. Even some Venezuelan ships fully loaded with oil cannot find places to sell their product. They are essentially stranded in the open sea and cannot dock. Relative data also shows the collapse of oil and gas activity according to the Dallas Fed survey. The contraction has been significant. The business activity index in the survey fell from minus 50.9 in the first quarter to minus 66.1 in the second quarter. This negative trend will most likely continue as the global economy remains in danger. Every month, economic expectations worsen. The oil price collapse is a global issue. Almost 85,000 jobs in U.S. oilfield services were lost due to the crisis. The U.S. oil market isn't the only one affected either. Saudi Aramco, for example, cut hundreds of jobs amid the drop in global oil demand. Related to this, first quarter profits for Aramco were down 25% from a year earlier, which is a significant loss for a gigantic company worth more than $1 trillion. According to some, Aramco's net worth is more than $2 trillion, so a 25% loss means more than $500 billion in the market. Employment in the oil industry is now at the lowest since 2016, which is a decline of 13.5%. Dropping from 785,000 jobs in May 2019 to roughly 679,000 in May 2020. Experts in the sector anticipate more job losses in the future as the sector enters a deep crisis. Like other global actors, China's oil industry is struggling. As the world's second largest economy, China is also very dependent on oil. Several Chinese oil firms have defaulted on dollar-denominated bonds. Also, due to very low demand, huge oil companies have experienced losses at a never-seen-before level. Venezuela and Iran are no different. They have both been embargoed by the United Nations and the United States of America. Their oil cannot be sold in global markets due to political reasons. All in all, economic collapse is affecting every oil market actor in the world, including the United States. Because shale oil is very costly to produce, each drop in the oil price also means huge losses for the American shale oil market. Last but not least, will pipeline operators or oil market actors in the U.S. and elsewhere survive the oil crisis? I don't think so. With trillions of dollars of debt and low demand, it'll be nearly impossible for the petrodollar system to recover. While certain financial experts say recovery depends on oil prices, as costs are crucial in this calculation, they are well paid by their financial institutions to say so. That's why we say the real economy is the most important. If there's no demand for a product in real life, then financial systems are just digital numbers on a screen. And if oil cannot be sold in US dollars due to a lack of liquidity, then the collapse of the petrodollar system has come. See you in the next video.